Cynthia. Jesus died for our Cynthias. Have you guys not seen 22 Jump Street?
Oh, yes. I was like, what?
Okay, I was like,
I thought, you the
I don't understand
poetry
anymore.
I know.
I thought it was Cynthia from the Rugrats. I was like, what?
No, I wish.
Cynthia. Oh, Cynthia. She's a really cool dancer. Cynthia. Sorry.
Well, I'm lost, so I'm going to move on.
Book Rex.
Hey everyone, welcome to BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. I'm Tilly.
I'm Nikki.
And I'm Kelly.
And this week we are joined once again by our friend and fellow book lover, Jess Owens. Hi, Jess.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thanks for coming back. How have you been since the last time we were recording together?
You know, just going along. I made it into the year 2022, so I can't complain.
Yes. Nice.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. I feel like that's how we're all feeling.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
definitely relatable. Well, we're so happy to have you back to talk about this book. So, in this episode, I'm personally thrilled to be talking about a newer book by one of my favorite authors, the urban fantasy novel The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which was published in 2020. Here's a publisher's synopsis from Kelly.
5 New Yorkers must come together in order to defend their city. Every city has a soul. Some are as ancient as myths, and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 5. But every city also has a dark side. A roiling, ancient evil stirs beneath the earth, threatening to destroy the city and her 5 protectors unless they can come together and stop it once and for all.
Great. You sounded really thrilled to be reading that.
Oh, I was trying to do, like, dramatic, like, this is the stuff. Like, do it again if you want.
No. I thought it was great. I thought you were just, like, kind of couldn't get through it, like, in a happy way.
I could have gone more. 5 New Yorkers must come together in order to defend their city. Like, I could do it like that.
One man, one world.
New York City, she's got 5. Like,
Okay, now I wish you'd done it like that, actually. I'm just kidding. You did a great job.
thanks.
Nikki, do you want to tell us what we're drinking tonight?
I would love to. So the drink we've chosen to pair with this episode is fittingly called the New Yorker.
Hey,
I was going to make a joke and say it's called like Connecticut or New Jersey or something, but like it's called the New Yorker. And it's made with bourbon, claret red wine, lemon juice, simple syrup, and orange juice. We thought this would be the perfect drink for a book about New York City coming alive.
Nice. So should we all take a little sip?
Yeah, we should. Or a big
All
sip.
right, ready? Oh, here we go.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, bourbon's
Hell
not my
yeah.
go-to, but it's not bad.
No.
Zesty.
Zesty.
Well, you know, because lemon zest.
Yeah.
You get it. Great. All right. Now that we've all had our first sip, let's talk about the book. So we are all going to give our star ratings out of 5, just a little explanation and maybe like a background of reading. Keep in mind that star ratings are like not very comprehensive. So maybe just tell us a little bit about your experience with the book. So let's start with, I don't know, Jess, do you want to start?
Sure. So it was a rough journey with this novel. I mean,
no.
I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but it felt like a lot of time. I gave it hurts to do this to Nora Jemisin, but I gave it 2 stars. That's 1, 2 stars. I'm so sorry, but twas not the story for me. I loved the Broken Earth trilogy, so I went into this very open-minded, although I knew people had varying experiences with it. But yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't enjoy it at all. Just the concept, the character, the story, the plot, the not really, not much. So that's unfortunate for me. Yeah.
Oh, that is a bummer to hear. It is definitely very different from her other books. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
Why don't we go to Nikki next?
Great. So I originally didn't give this any rating because I left this book being like, what did I just read? Did anything happen? Did a lot of things happen? Did just like so many things happen I couldn't comprehend? I don't think that's what was going on. But I really am hoping or thinking that this is going to be another V.E. Schwab situation for me. I'm coming into this author on the wrong book. I went into V.E. Schwab on Addie LaRue, and that was a nightmare for me. How many freckles does she have? 7. 7 fucking freckles.
We'll never forget.
So, like how I would love to read a different V.E. Schwab book, I think I would love a recommendation to read a different N.K. Jemisin book. But as we'll get into as we talk more about this, I think that this book was just written for someone who definitely was not me. So that's
a very, very tactful way of putting it.
That's fine. And I wrote a lot of notes to comprehend my feelings. But yeah, I ended up just putting a 1 on Goodreads because I couldn't even really rate what happened. It was an experience, to say the least.
Okay, great. Why don't we go to Kelly?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say I was on a live reading sprint that Jess did. Like, I wasn't on it with her. I was in the comments reading along, and people in the chat were like, just DNF. And I was like, she cannot. I am here. So thank you, Jess, for persevering.
I did. I stuck it out.
Yes.
Proud of you.
So, this is also my first time reading N.K. Jemisin. I was really excited to read this book. I thought it sounded pretty interesting, of like just the idea of having these avatar people who represent cities, and there's monsters and action and whatever. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll read that. I did not enjoy my time at all. I'm sorry to say. I, like Nikki and Jess, felt like, what is going on? Not because I didn't understand it, even though there were parts where I was like, what? Like, legitimately, like, what is happening? But we'll get into that. But I just was really let down. I really did not enjoy my time, and I'm glad I started reading this early on in the year because I, like, spaced it out enough that I wasn't having to scramble too much for the recording. So that was good, but it also really dragged on my reading experience. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5, so I'm like in the middle of Jess and Nikki. I also have a lot of notes, and there were some monsters and some action like I wanted, but it was not what I expected at all. I thought it felt pretty flat. I thought it was super rambly. I didn't like the characters. I hated the ending, which we'll get to. So I would be open to reading another book by her, but I think I need a break from her for a bit because I'm pretty annoyed, honestly. But I'm not going to give up on her because I have heard so many good things, but this was not for me. So I'm sorry to say.
Hey, I mean, everyone's experience reading is totally valid. I'm just gonna come in hot with a different experience, which was I really loved this book.
I love that for you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
I do
I love it for me as well. This is my 5th Jemisin book I've read. So I've previously read the Broken Earth trilogy, which was life-changing in a lot of ways. And I've also read the first 100,000 Kingdoms book, which I also really enjoyed, different kind of vibe as well. So I went into this one already being like a pretty big fan of Jemisin's writing and brain and ideas in general. So I think for me, I was just like along for the ride. I totally understand the plot being like a bit weird and all over the place, but that's what I liked about it. Because I'm a big freaking literary nerd, and I was just reading for the concept and for the ideas and the reflections and like thoughts that were present. So I read it really fast, actually. I think it only took me like 4 or 5 days to get through it, which was great for me personally. And by the end of it, I was like, wow, loved it. But I did find the ending a bit underwhelming, so I totally understand that critique as well. And the longer I kind of sat away from it, the more I'm like, okay, you know what? Characters are like a little all over the place and like stereotypical, maybe not fully drawn out. But I liked so much of the just weird content that I was happy reading it the whole time.
Right.
So I ended up giving it like a 4.25. That's right. I've moved into quarter points just to more accurately reflect my experiences. I'm moving into emojis next. Just kidding.
Watch out.
That would be too much.
I would love that. I use them all the time. I think that would really suit my ratings. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a great time reading it, and I'm really sorry that none of you did, but I'm kind of glad in a way that we all had, like, there's at least some differentiation between experiences, so I think it'll make for interesting conversation. So
yeah, I have a lot to talk about, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with that, do we have any other kind of first impressions we're dying to talk about, or do we want to just...
Let me flip my notebook open.
Handy dandy notebook.
Get started. I just want to say that I started with both the physical and the audio, because so many people told me read the audio or listen to the audiobook. And literally in the first 2 pages, I was like, what is going on here? What am I listening to? Yeah. I was like, did I start the right book? Because some of the sounds, like, I started it out slower. I usually start audiobooks at 1.5 to see how the narrator is, and then I speed it up from there. And I was like, oh, it's a little slow. Moved it up to, I think, 2. Like, some of the sounds, especially like the laughs the narrator did, because I usually love Robin Miles. I was like,
my God.
I just was like sitting there like, what is happening? I think Nigel, my dog, was very confused as well. And I think I messaged Kelly and I'm like, and she's like, how far have you made it? I'm like, page 2. Page 2. What's going on?
I texted Kelly when I was on page 2 as well, and I went, are you listening to the audiobook that's narrated by Robin Miles? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, I don't like it. But I started to like her a lot more as the book went on. But I realized the first, like the prologue, sounds like slam poetry, and it just made me want to stab myself.
Yes. Oh no.
But did you listen to the audiobook, Tilly?
No, I hardly ever listen to audiobooks, so maybe this is part of the different experiences.
If you listen to the audiobook, I think you'd get it. It was like, and then he did bah, 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 bah. And I was like, oh, it's like a dance class in my brain.
So I'd probably like it.
I didn't listen to the first 2 chapters, like the prologue and then the next thing before chapter 1. I read that and I was like, what the hell? I need the audiobook. And then I put the audiobook on.
You're smart. Because I'm looking at the book, even the first page where there's like this like long thing, but she does it with her voice and it's like, it sounds so, and I was just like, what is happening? It was a trip. There's a lot of sounds.
Yes,
a lot of sounds. There was a really high production value on that on that audiobook.
Oh, nice. I do know that the prologue was originally written, I think, as a short story.
That's what I heard.
And so if it does feel like the narration is different, like it's first person, where the rest of the book is third person. And so, yeah, I can understand that the prologue is really different. I had to read it a couple times to fully grasp what I was going into. But then once I was like, okay, I think I got it. I'm just going to keep going forward and trust that NK will explain it all to me. And she did, sort of.
Oh, Nora. After I had messaged Kelly, I was like, all right, I'm just going to put this down for a minute. I'm going to put it down. Because I posted on my Instagram, I'm like, does it keep going like this? And so many people, the only thing I said was, I just started The City We Became. Is it like this the whole time? And without even expounding, people are like, yes, it is. And some people at that point were like, DNF it. And I was like, no, I've got to read 2 pages. And so, yeah, but I can't wait to hear more, Tilly, what you enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what you liked about it, because I feel like Jess and Kelly and I are going to have really similar things that we disliked. So maybe we'll be able to appreciate it more after we have this discussion.
I mean, maybe. I think what it comes down to is it's very rare that I don't like a book. So I'm just really willing to like let a book happen to me and go along with it and like figure it out and kind of experience it the way it wants to be experienced. So maybe just the way I approach books is like kind of weird, but I had a great time. So I'm happy to like express my enjoyment of it, and hopefully that'll help you guys. But
yeah, I mean, I think I'm just bitter and jaded.
You're not jaded.
no. Sorry, we should have jumped in right on that. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, I'm just teasing. Just teasing.
One thing I found, like, I had a really hard time liking the characters. And then after I finished the book, I was having this existential moment where I was like, are they really characters because they're embodiments of cities?
Right.
But then I was like, no, Nikki, that's stupid. You have to read about these people for 400 pages. They're characters and you should want to like some things about them. So I did kind of have that moment where I was like battling with myself, being like, but is it really like this? But I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
The only character that I kind of liked was Queen's, and I won't say who that is just in case that's a spoiler, but I'll say the Queen's avatar. I liked her like a little bit, but I was like, she's barely in the book, so there wasn't even that much to like. I was just like, you annoy me the least. Can you please come back? Like,
yeah.
Honestly, that's how I felt.
Found the language in this book didn't speak to me at all. The like using the word avatar just made them seem like video game characters and different vocabulary that the author used throughout. I was just not vibing with for some reason. I looked through Goodreads reviews to see if I could read a review from someone and it would spark some kind of thought or common experience, because I was having a really hard time putting what I thought about this book into words, and somebody likened it to a comic book. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. In the way that I felt like there was a lot of surface things happening. There was a lot of like speech bubble moments, but there wasn't anything underneath that for me to actually like build the story. Yeah. And I think that has to, if I really like the characters, then that would have been different.
Yeah.
You don't mind things when you like the people you're going on the journey with.
Oh yeah, you can let a lot of things slide. It definitely was a lot of boom, pow things. And I was like,
Rat battle. We'll get into that later.
Yes.
That's not really a spoiler. Is it a spoiler?
I don't think so.
I told Jess to message me when that happened because I was like, I need to know.
Oh, I must have glazed. I was just like, I would like go back and I'm like, okay, I'm not processing it, but just, I mean, we'll get into it, but so much of it for me was just like, even if I slowed down or like went back, and it's not like I didn't know what was happening. I just like, I couldn't like put it together as a story. I don't know how to explain it. I'd just be like, what? Why? I don't know. I just really, I have a lot of critiques, but I don't have a lot of this exact moment because I'm like, wait, because sometimes I can just like not, like kind of drift when listening to an audiobook, but I would follow along in the physical book for that reason. And I'm like, what happened here?
Yeah, and I think Nikki kind of put the nail hit what? Whoa! Not put the nail. Hit the nail on the head. Put the nail in the coffin. Oh my God! What is going on with my metaphors today? I think you hit it on the head, Nikki. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yes, that's
Nikki
correct.
was right when she said something about like vibing with the book and vibing with the writer and just not vibing with it.
Yeah.
Because after kind of knowing that both you and Nikki, you Kelly and you Nikki both hated it, I thought about it a little bit more. And I'm like, what did I like about it? And am I like wrong for liking it?
No.
And then I thought about it and I was like, I think I just was okay with something about the writing spoke to me. And because it's such a writing heavy book and not like plot heavy and not like character heavy, it's more about like the writing. If it works for you, then great. But if it doesn't work for you, then the whole thing wouldn't work for you.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense.
That's a
why
lot
I
of
gave
stories
it-
sometimes. You're like,
Yeah.
it was vibes. Like, I know,
Vibes.
Nikki, you didn't like Addie LaRue, but I was vibing with her, okay? I'm
loved
so
Addie
sorry.
LaRue, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
There are books where I will read the book so fast and I'm like, yes, I loved that. That was amazing. And then I think back and I'm like, did anything really happen that was super crazy? And it's like, no, but I was
Vibes.
in it. Something about the first of it just hooked me and I was there to stay. So I totally get it. I just didn't feel it.
Yeah.
With this one. So
And that's fair.
yeah.
That's what bumped my rating up to a 1.5. Was I was like, gee.
Really bumped it up there, eh?
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be mean.
No, I loved it. It was very funny.
Just because I was talking to my husband and he was like 1.5. I thought he hated it. And I was like, well, she can clearly write. Like, it's not that I hated every single sentence, but I just was really not happy. I'm sorry, Jess.
I mean, it's fine. N.K. Jemisin does not need our approval.
No, she
She's
doesn't.
the first person to win 3 Hugo
She's
Awards
incredible. She's a
consecutively.
masterclass.
She's incredible. She's doing her own thing. She doesn't need our approval.
No.
So
Kelly, that was
I wouldn't
amazing.
apologize to
Thank
her
you.
one bit. Jess is weeping.
But that's why, I gave it 2 stars because I'm like, well, I can't deny the woman her talent in writing. I just know the story did not work for my ears, my eyes.
You can tell that I've never read her because I was like, I don't know who this lady is. 1 star.
I was like, clearly she knows what she's doing. I just didn't like what she
man.
did here. 1.5. Like,
I was really surprised how telly this book was and not showy because she writes epic fantasy or high fantasy.
Her work is all over the place. Like,
So-
I guess kind of fantasy, but yeah.
Yeah, like I was
Sci
expecting
fantasy.
something more like storytelling, world building-y kind of thing, but there was a lot of just sarcastically or backhandedly telling the characters what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I loved it.
see?
I'm glad
It
you did.
totally works for some people. And
Well,
I
and I think-
a lot of books
sorry.
it works for me. From Blood and Ash, that's a very telly book, and I was all about it. I was like, tell me more. But with this one, I was just like, I need to be shown. I need to subtly creep into this world environment.
Yeah, I get that. I do think the word for the genre that I think makes the most sense for N.K. Jemisin would be speculative fiction, which I feel like is different from fantasy in that it is like speculative, like not just that the concepts are like speculating on reality, but also that it feels like more reflective and more kind of like a little bit weird. And that I think is what is going on in this book. I do agree that it feels like comic booky and kind of more sci-fi or like urban, or where her other books were a little bit more kind of like traditional fantasy. It's still non-traditional because she does weird things and I love it. But yeah, it is strange. I think this book just happened to me. Like, I can't even really... I know you're saying, like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say that you liked about it. I'm not even sure I could explain it in the way that none of you can really explain why you didn't like it.
I can
Or you can
explain.
explain.
Yeah.
Sorry, you
No,
can explain.
no
But, like,
yes.
It's
I don't
harder
know
for
what
me
words
to
you're about.
explain, but yeah, I understand. But I think we've all had those reads before where you're like, just the experience. I experienced it, and it was a great experience. And I think, especially with books that are different from the typical, normal structure and type of writing, that tend to be more divisive, usually happen like someone hates it or someone's like, I was down for the ride, and I enjoyed it. So I definitely think it makes sense. And I know, like, when you're like, I don't know, it's stuff. I liked it.
Yeah. That's how I felt with Addie LaRue. Like, Nikki hated it. Tilly liked it. I loved it. I cried during our recording. I was like,
oh my God, I wish I would have cried with you. I loved it. But, like, I think also Addie LaRue hit me at a time. Like, I think also readings.
Sometimes it is
when
about
you read, timing. And, like, I mean, I'm always going through the existential crisis. Let's be real. But it just was like, I was here for the vibes. And I was lost and confused. And I was sad and I understood. But I can understand other people being like, please. So
I was a little like that. I'm not gonna lie.
But also, I didn't know going into this book that it was going to be speculative fiction. And if I'd known that, I would have known right away that I probably wouldn't have liked it, because I don't usually like speculative fiction. So when that became clear, I was like, no. Like, I was so let down. But we just read the synopsis. You wouldn't know. Like, you would not know.
The synopsis is not a synopsis. It's like this vague
idea, which is what hooked me. Yeah.
But I don't know how else to describe it, really. Like, I agree that it's not complete.
Yeah.
But how do you summarize
avatars,
this
New
book?
York personified, fighting otherworldly beasts. There
Racism.
A lot of
Slam
it.
We'll
poetry.
get to that, yeah.
Cynthia. Jesus died for our Cynthias. Have you guys not seen 22 Jump Street?
Oh, yes. I was like, what?
Okay, I was like,
I was giving you the
I don't
only slam
understand
poetry
anymore.
I know.
I thought it was Cynthia from the Rugrats. I was like, what?
No, I wish.
Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, she's a really cool dancer. Cynthia. Sorry.
Well, I'm lost, so I'm going to move on.
To book recs.
To book recs, do we have little book recommendations based on this book? All right. Why don't we start with Kelly?
So, even though I did not like this book at all, I will recommend a book I did like.
Great.
It's similar. It's similar with a few literary elements that it uses, but it is not the same at all in terms of plot. So this would be The Strangers by Margaret Peterson Haddix. It's the first in her Greystone Secrets series, and it's a middle grade mystery sci-fi book. And it's about these three kids named Emma, Finn, and oh my god, the other guy, Chess. I was like, what's his name? Chess.
Chess?
Yeah, it's a short
Like the game?
Oh, it's like a
All right,
nickname,
sorry.
but yeah, that's okay. And they're siblings, and they start noticing that there's a family on the news who looks just like them, that they've been abducted, and they're like, what? How do they look like us? They have the same names as us. They have the same birthdays. And it's just like this really, really fun, super action-packed mystery of like, who are these strangers? How do they relate to us? And I had a ton of fun reading that one. I will probably read the next one at some point this year. And it was just like something I saw at the library. And I thought, why not? Because I want to get into middle grade a bit this year. And yeah, so this was like a happy mix of sci-fi mystery for me, where I didn't feel like super overwhelmed by concepts. And I didn't guess many twists in this book. And it's a middle grade book. So I was really pleased and surprised about that. So yeah, I would recommend that one.
Awesome.
Nice. I've never heard of that.
It's
Is she the one who wrote the Chasing Vermeer series?
No.
Making that up? Oh, okay. That's someone else whose name sounds like that, though, right?
Nope. Her name is Blue.
All right. You're right. Never mind. Just trying to engage, but I guess I'm an idiot, so.
Her name is
Oh, yeah. Blue Ballet or Blue Ballet. Sure.
I think. Yeah. Well, I have it right there. It's in the back. Anyways.
No, I'm
that's
laughing at
also-
myself for not knowing the word.
It's also a very good book, but yeah, not her. Sorry.
All good. Okay, Jess, do you want to recommend a book to us based on this one?
Another book that I read that I actually loved, but it had a similar what I feel like you went through, Tilly, where it's just an experience and you just have to go with it, is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I don't even know how to explain it because it is so off the wall. It is essentially like it's a large blended family, if you will, of these kids. They're not like small children. I would say they're like late teens, early 20s. And the book starts, they're looking for father, and you don't know where father is, but they all have like different powers, and it has like the gods walk among us trope, and a lot of chaotic things happen. Just think bombs and packs of wild dogs, and it's a mess. It's a good mess. It's just like 75% of the time I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I like what I'm reading. And I just kept going. And then I was like, oh. And I will say there is quite some violence on page. And, you know, main character may be wearing a tutu, but that does not make her cute and gentle. It's an experience. So, and it's a standalone. I mean, it is fantasy, but it's one of the most unique, bonkers books I've ever read, and I really liked it. So, you know, maybe if you like that, maybe if you like The City We Became, you can go to read that. Mm-hmm.
That's on my e-reader.
That sounds cool.
I can't wait.
Yes, read it, and update me on your thoughts as you read it.
Okay.
Great. Nikki, what do you have to recommend?
So I'm going to recommend American Gods by Neil Gaiman. So I really wanted to love The City We Became because Neil Gaiman said glorious on the cover, and Neil Gaiman is my main man, but it was not to be. And I hate that we've had to disagree like this. But
First
so
argument.
American Gods is one of my favorite books ever. I also really love the show. It centers around a character named Shadow Moon who is getting out of prison, and he's approached by a man named Mr. Wednesday to do some jobs for him. They're illegal jobs, and he doesn't have really anything left, so he decides to take it. And the premise of this is that everybody's ancestors brought their gods over to America with them. So there's African gods, Norse gods, Irish gods, Czechoslovakian gods, all the gods over in America. And they are fighting a war with the gods of the New World, like media, to stay alive, because the only way the gods are going to stay alive is if people remember them. So you see Shadow go all over America in this book, doing different things at various really cool, real historical sites that you can go visit. But it's just so magical. It reminded me of The City We Became in a lot of ways, other than the fact that I really liked this one. Or if you want to go with something really New York focused, picture this: 5 volumes, epic, mythological fantasy, ending with a fight in New York City. It's Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Wait a minute, you get to have 2 recommendations?
That was quick. I can cut
Mic
it,
drop.
but I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, well, here's the real
best
mic drop.
pitch ever.
We picked the same book to recommend, Nikki, and I was worried we would. So
American Gods?
Yes, I'm just going to reiterate that American Gods is a great book to read if you liked this, or also apparently if you didn't like this. So I'm just going to double down on Nikki's recommendation because it's a great one. I had a feeling she was also going to recommend it, but I graciously let her go first.
Thank you. I was like sweating. I was like, somebody's going to say it before me and I don't have another one.
Yeah, because it makes so much sense. So also, I mean, Nikki summarized it really beautifully, but I'm just going to say a couple quick words to get you also feeling the same way. So American Gods by Neil Gaiman, also similarly gritty urban fantasy, characters that are more than they are, brilliant writing, dark sense of humor. It all makes sense. And yes, I had also noticed that Neil Gaiman said glorious on the front of this book, but I agreed with him. So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for those book recs. I'm going to go out and immediately read those other ones that you, Kelly, and you Jess, recommended because they sound great. So, moving along. Wow, I feel like we've really gotten out a lot of our feelings already. Okay, well, I thought I had, but I can't wait for more feelings.
I'm excited, yeah.
Yeah. So we're actually going to be moving into spoilers territory now. So if you haven't read the book and you don't want to know how it all turns out, you should probably stop listening now. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a rating or review on your podcast app of choice. So if you don't want any spoilers, you should leave now. Get out of here. Bye-bye. Okay, so we'll begin with a quick recap of the rest of the book so we're all on the same page.
As we know from the synopsis, the book imagines a world where cities can come alive. This process only happens when a city is old enough and large enough, full of its own culture and myths. The story begins just as New York City awakens for the first time.
In this world, each city chooses an avatar, a human with a deep connection to where they live, to become its physical embodiment. This person must fight the enemy, a mysterious entity that targets vulnerable newly born cities.
New York City's avatar is a nameless young black man, an unhoused street artist who begins to hear strange sounds underneath the city. He soon meets Paulo, a man who understands these sounds and wants to help. Paulo is later revealed to be the avatar of Sao Paulo, Brazil, the last city to awaken before this one, who was charged with easing the transition.
Before long, the enemy targets the young artist, taking the form of shape-shifting creatures who chase him down. Though he seems to defeat them in battle on the Williamsburg Bridge, he is severely wounded, which causes the bridge to collapse. Sao Paulo realizes that New York is too large for just one avatar, and that more will awaken to come to his aid.
Sometime later, the narrative shifts to a young grad student getting off a train in Manhattan, who suddenly gets hit with vertigo and visions. He has become the avatar of the borough of Manhattan and realizes he has no other memories before this moment. When a concerned stranger asks his name, he says it's Manny.
Manny finds a note in his phone about his new Manhattan address, and on his way there, he notices weird white tendrils sprouting on FDR Drive. Through his new instincts, he recognizes them as the enemy and uses his city powers to destroy them.
Later, Manny and his new roommate Belle see more white tendrils in Inwood Park and run into the embodiment of the enemy, the woman in white. They are only able to drive her away with the help of Brooklyn Thompson, city councilor, former DJ, known as MC Free, and avatar of Brooklyn. Who would have guessed?
Whoa. We are soon introduced to the other borough avatars scattered across the city. Bronca, the Bronx, a mid-60s indigenous Lenape graffiti artist and gallery owner. Aislinn Houlihan, Staten Island, a 30-something sheltered librarian. And Padmini Prakash, Queens, an Indian PhD student living with her aunt. Though these three are all separated from each other, they each encounter the woman in white individually.
While Bronca and Padmini are able to fight off the woman in white on their own, Aislinn becomes corrupted due to her closed-minded upbringing and shields herself from discovery from the others.
A whole lot of other things happen, including the quest to find the sleeping young man known as the city's primary, Bronca's encounter with the hateful artist collective Alt Artistes, Aislinn being drawn further to the woman in white side and injuring Sao Paulo, revelations about the Avatar's fate, the reunion of Manny, Brooklyn, Bronca, and Padmini, and the discovery that the woman in white is actually the avatar of an interdimensional city intent on planting itself on top of New York and destroying their reality.
In the end, Manny and Sao Paulo find the primary in a decommissioned Manhattan subway station, and though they have only successfully reunited 4 of the 5 avatars, Bronca's friend and protege, Vanessa, suddenly awakens as the avatar for Jersey City, a city closer to Manhattan than Staten Island. Together, they wake the primary, and New York is fully reborn. They blast the enemy out of the sky, though she maintains a foothold in Staten Island.
In the epilogue, we see the 5 avatars and the primary enjoying a beach day when they are summoned to the summit in Paris, a gathering of all the great cities. While they are aware of the enemy's shadow looming over Staten Island, for now they all enjoy the moment, reunited as one.
Cool.
The end.
The end. Yeah, where do we want to start?
Bit of a fizzled out ending, in my opinion, because there has been like so much build up, and they even like kind of cut away from the main fight at the end. This is my one gripe. My one gripe with the book was that there was this bomb dropped on all of them, right, by Hong, the avatar of Hong Kong, who basically said like, oh, once you wake the primary and he consumes you, then his strength will be great. And they're all like, wait a second, he's going to consume us? Which was, I thought, a really whoa plot moment. And then nothing happened with it. It just kind of like wasn't an issue. So I don't know, maybe that'll be explored further. And I think there's going to be 2 more books in the series. But that to me was kind of a lame ending.
I had to take a cleansing breath there because I thought this was a standalone. And then as I got near the end, I heard it was a trilogy.
Like more from the Great Cities series or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Because she just turned in the draft for the second one. I mean, I won't be continuing, but I'm excited for you, Tilly. That maybe you'll get it into this year, beginning of next year.
Yeah.
I just felt like this whole book was like, we're going to build on something, or we're going to build something up, and then nothing happens. Or like, hey, something crazy just happened to me. I've become the city. But nothing happened. It was all build up, and then some freaking girl from Jersey saves the day. And there wasn't even a fight. It was like, wait a second.
Yeah, they cut away from the fight. There was like, Manny turned into King Kong briefly.
And
then
I'm sorry,
all of a sudden
that is ridiculous, okay? That is so, to me, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was ridiculous. I was like, why is he King Kong? Why is he King Kong, okay? He's not from New York, first of all. He's from an island way off somewhere else. That. Yeah. And,
I think I blocked it out.
It was a blink and you miss it moment.
Just like freaking Staten Island having a job. I didn't know she had a job. Like, I didn't know any of these things. But I just felt like the end, they built this all up, and then it was like, wait a second, where are you from? And she's like, I'm from Jersey City. And they're like, oh, cities aren't built on political lines and this and that. You're one of us. And then it was this big kumbaya moment of like,
let's all hold hands.
Yeah, yay. We are New York. We are the smell in the gutters. We're the Central Park. We're the this, we're that.
We are the world. We are the children.
This whole book was just a prologue. For what?
It did feel like a lot of setup.
The next one.
I really think that this whole book could have happened in like 150 pages with the last 250 pages
just been a
being
novella.
Like actual stuff.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the whole time it was just, I was waiting. I'm like, how much more setup can I get? And I was also, maybe it might be a problem with listening to the audiobook because I do, like Jess was saying, if I don't follow along in the book, I kind of can zone out really easily and not be picking up all of the information. But there were just some things that I was like, why is this being thrown in there? The artist group that came in, and I was like, what? like why? And like the way that the woman in white tried to like infiltrate, I'm like, no, just like grab them with your fucking tentacles and strangle them and be like, I'm gonna get you, bitch. And then like have some real action. Like, why are you taunting them in a bathroom stall? That's weak.
It doesn't. My biggest, I feel like when earlier you were saying it was very like telly and not showy, and I just, when usually, and it depends, not always, but usually when something like this is just so on the nose, like there was very little like nuance about it, because so every Avatar person was a borough, and like even just from their name being like Manny, Manhattan, Bronca, the Bronx, and then they're just like all of the, even not being from New York and just knowing the little that I know these are all, stereotypes or typical things of people who live in these boroughs. And it was just like there was nothing really hidden in their personalities or their stories. It was all just like point blank, this is the white girl from Staten Island who's racist and terrible, and this is the one from the Bronx, and she was a DJ. And I'm just like, it just, that, like they weren't real to me because, well, they were avatars. They just felt like, hey, I'm giving this thing a name. And this thing is just really how I feel about people who live in this borough. And I just never like...
Yeah, just like racial stereotyping.
Yeah, I was like,
everything.
Okay. And just waiting for them. I'm like, all right, well, I know we got to meet this one and we need to get to this one. And it felt like it took so long to get to that point where they're all together. I'm like, all right, I don't even care about the art gallery. Or I don't care about your buying this house and whoever's coming to take it. Just get to the point. What is the point? I just wanted it to be over.
I have to say, when the first chapter started, after the prologue, when you meet Manny, he's like talking about how he's getting out of Penn Station or something. He's in Manhattan and stuff, and he can't remember his name. And I literally went, if he says his name is Manny, I'm going to be so mad. And next page, he's like, my name's Manny. And I was like, what the hell?
I did,
and then I was trying to just guess the other borough names the whole time. And I was like, why did that have to be a thing? Like, really? Like,
why would
Iselin?
Why wasn't the one from Queens? Her name should have been Quinn.
Yeah, or Queen.
Queenie.
Yeah.
Queen
Also,
Latifah. Yeah.
Bronca? How much did your mom hate you to name you Bronca? Okay.
I did think about this too. I was like, the names are a lot, and I'm like willing to suspend my disbelief, but maybe not this much. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, but would I be able to keep track of their borough name and their real person name if they weren't linked in some way?
You
I don't
probably
know.
would, because you cared.
But there was only 4 of them. So if I can't keep track of 4 people, like, you know what I mean?
I know.
And Hong, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hong.
I know. I had a
At the
problem
end,
with the
Manny
names
turned
too.
into King Kong, so then you had like the full Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I just like Sao Paulo. I'm like, okay, but why? Why
Yeah.
Sao Paulo of all places? What connection? I just
Right?
I just kept like waiting for something to connect to me, and I was like, earlier in the story when Manny and his roommate are at the park and he's like throwing down money. He's like, oh, it's to buy back our land that was
my
taken.
God.
And I'm like, it's just too like, none of it was like, ooh, you know, those, when you read those things and you're like, oh, I get like what they're trying to say, what this is like. And I'm not good with words. Not an analogy or like a metaphor for this or whatever. This was just like, this is exactly what it is. I'm telling you right here, right now. And I'm like, I love those things to be represented in fiction. And N.K. Jemisin always speaks on that in her other works, but they're definitely more like, not just on the surface. It's definitely more nuanced. You definitely have to really like read it and think about it. Sometimes it may not hit you the first time you're reading it, or like you may think about it later and be like, oh, this was just like, okay, this person's racist, this person's black, this person is this, here is this, we're buying back the land these people took. And I'm like, okay, well, leave us. Yeah. I mean, it didn't leave really anything to the imagination. It just was like, this is what it is. And I'm like, all right, that's something.
I don't know. I kind of liked the like how they fought the enemy though. Like I understand, I totally get what you're saying, that there's not a lot of nuance, but I was really intrigued in the idea of like them using constructs about the city to fight this like interdimensional creature. So I don't know. I guess it just worked for me, but I totally get why it didn't work for you.
I think I would have preferred if they used like, so okay, the money thing annoyed me. The rap battle, I rolled my eyes
God.
so hard and so high up in my head.
Can we spend a moment just
Where
contemplating
was the rap
that?
battle?
The rap battle was
How
rough.
did I miss that?
What? It's when she's fighting the spiders that are like coming up at the house.
I hate spiders. I was like, oh my God, whoa, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Didn't need to worry because MC Free is on the case, okay? All she had to do is say some of her old lyrics and then suddenly poof, the enemy is gone. And I was like, what? What does this...
But
why?
what a compelling message that art is the real, the pen is mightier than the sword. It's all about art. Like,
well,
no,
next
not for
time
you.
something comes to attack me, I'm just going to be like, this opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You only get one shot. And then just like,
Can you
watch all my
imagine?
problems run out
And
the door.
sweaty.
Someone's... Mom
Knees weak.
spaghetti! Mom spaghetti! But no,
Oh my gosh.
I would have preferred if they were like, you know what, New Yorkers, they're the stereotypical cranky, grumpy. Let's have them do a death glare, you know, and they glare and they die. I would have loved that. I didn't like. If we're gonna be on the nose, I thought this was on the nose. So I'm like, if we're gonna go on the nose, let's make it campy comic book then, and not like. For me, the money, the rap battle, the like math, cringy. I could kind of be like, okay, fine, because she was using it to like teleport. Cool. Yeah, I was like, okay, that I can see that working out. Okay, fine. But like, and it wasn't like a, that was just a specifically Padmini thing. So that's why I didn't, and obviously the rap battle, that was a specifically Brooklyn thing, MC Free, but it was all tied up with the city, but in a way that I was like, this is so lame to me, and so like this buildup of like, oh my god, are they going to be okay? Of course they're going to be okay. There was the highest stakes here, like the world is going to end, New York City is going to die, but for me, I just felt like there was all this buildup, but then like I never worried about their well-being because I knew they were going to live this whole time, and I wanted to feel like, oh my god, is someone going to die? Is someone gonna, you know? But I didn't get that. So
yeah. I will say I was interested during Manny's chapter when he was like, I can't remember anything, and the older gentleman says, can't remember what he says, but he assumes he's Mexican or something, and then you kind of see throughout the book that Manny kind of embodies this
like ethnic
subtle
ambiguity,
kind of everything man, where people look at him and they can identify with his features and feel like he's a part of their group. I thought that was really interesting. I don't think that it was really necessary that he lost all of his memories.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
I was like, is it because he was so un-New York?
Right,
that they just had to gut him so that he could be completely Manhattan? But he was the only one who didn't remember who they were. But I don't think that that was necessary for the plot. And I think they spent a lot of time focusing on that when they could have just been focusing on other things. So
I have to tell this funny story, which is that, so the enemy, right, the woman in white, every time she touches someone and brings them over to her side, they sprout these like white tendrils, right, these like little wavy white fronds. And now during the pandemic times, I've been getting a couple of white hairs here and there. And in the middle of reading this book, I happened to glance in a mirror and I had one white hair sticking straight up from my part. And I was like, it's got me. She got me.
Relia. She reached you all the way from New York
She
City.
touched me. Yeah, and then I was like, whoa. But it was fine. I just plucked it out.
You're the hero of the second book. Spoiler
that Fredericton
alert.
is not big enough for the woman in white to come.
I did like the tendrils. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really creepy. Yeah. And I also like, too, when it's eventually revealed that her name is Relia, I wasn't sure what that was, so I looked it up briefly because I think Padmini had like a moment. And so apparently Relia was this city in a Lovecraft story that Cthulhu was like imprisoned in, and it was like this lost city, kind of the way that they talk about like Atlantis and Pompeii being lost cities and that they tried to awaken but like were defeated. So I thought that was a really interesting layer that like once I kind of did a little research into it, I was like, oh, I kind of understand that more. And Lovecraft wrote a lot of really interesting sci-fi but was also like a really terrible person. So I do feel like this book is kind of a commentary on his work as like the art versus the social. So I was really interested in that idea.
I didn't know that this was where the book was going to go. I thought I was getting an action adventure sci-fi. So when we met the alt artistes, I was like, oh no, because I just thought like I know that it's set in New York and it's an urban sci-fi kind of thing. So it's like, yes, it's the real world, quote unquote, but it's also not, you know, for all intents and purposes. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think we have people like Relia or things like Relia, right, with tendrils and stuff. Hopefully not, but I don't know. I don't know the world. So,
Who knows what's at the bottom of the ocean?
Nobody, because we know less about the bottom of the ocean than we do about outer space.
yes.
Terrifying.
But-
Sorry, I just like really have feelings about that. So I'm with you, Jess.
But, so I'm just, knock on wood, but there's not anything like that. But I was just so, like, disappointed when the whole alt-right thing came into play, because I just thought you have so many possibilities, and even in this alternate reality, racism is the driving force of the enemy. And I was like, okay, because, like, there's nothing wrong with that type of story, but that's not what I thought I signed up for. So when I heard that part, I was like, oh, so even the aliens or whatever you want to call it, from wherever she's from or they're from, is like, we're going to use racism as the tool to infiltrate. Which I understand if they're coming to Earth, they're like, we'll use racism. But, like, for me, I just wanted something more out of the box, is what I wanted.
It was like everything else with this book. It was very on the nose, very black and white, if you will.
Literally.
Cringe. So I think that this book is a product of its time. The last 3 years, almost every book that I've read that has some kind of commentary is about racism. Before that, it was about LGBTQ plus rights. The 3 years before that, it's like the wave. I don't think that that's necessarily right. I think sometimes it's nice to just read a book because you enjoy it. But like, I don't know, it's a lot. I think that she could have, like so many other things, put a little more nuance into it. Still could have been about that without being so, like, punchy in the face about it. I don't know.
I feel that I've been having that issue with a lot of young adult books recently.
Yeah.
And I've said the same thing. Like, I'm like, no, this is fantasy, so you can make it up. We don't have to be oppressed in this world. We can just, the big bad can be something else. And so I don't know what I thought going into this, because I had heard things about, like, it's a love letter to New York and their avatars and something. So I think in my mind, this is going to sound so dumb, I was picturing, like, Transformers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what
Pacific Rim.
I think it was more like, like superhero action kind of thing. And I mean, I guess you kind of get that in the comic booky feel, but I just didn't think it would be like this thing in a human person that's just the personalities of the people who live in these boroughs fight a monster, the white monster, the race. So yeah, but a lot of young adult, I feel like books have been, and I think it goes with trends, right? Whatever's like, books are often commentary. I totally get that. But sometimes it feels like another one after another one. I'm like, oh, not this again. I just want to have a good time without it having to be like, remember racist. I'm like, I know, I live in the real world. That's why I read fantasy and sci-fi, because I want to break. And so when stuff like that comes in and it's so heavy handed, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yes. I agree with everyone. I do think, however, that in the year that this was published, 2020, if an interdimensional being came to Earth with the plan to separate people and turn them against each other, I think the world is set up so that this interdimensional entity can take advantage of people's hate. And so it made sense, but it is a lot.
Yeah. What was and maybe again at the end I was just like, is it almost finished? So, but towards the end with that whole like other dimension, I'm trying to, if I understood it right, like there's another dimension, but in order to save New York, that means they'd be killing people somewhere else. But if the dimension, like if it came through, then the other place would be safe. Like what?
Oh, the alternate universes?
Yeah. I was like, wait, so either way, this sucks, like we're gonna kill people or something? I was very confused with that part.
Yeah, I highlighted a quote that because it helped me understand. I kind of read it a couple times. So if you'd like, I could read that.
Yes.
And then we can talk about it.
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of a longer quote because it's when Branka, because she was the oldest avatar, she was gifted with the knowledge about, the kind of collective knowledge about cities. So she's talking to Vanessa about it. So
Is she
says,
also the indigenous one?
Yeah.
Hitting the nail right there, smacking it so hard.
Yeah, I guess so. So she says, the first world, that first life, was a miraculous thing. But each decision those living beings made fissioned off a new world, one where some of them turned left and another where some turned right. Then each of those worlds fissioned off more worlds of their own, and so on and so on. How do you top a miracle? You don't. You just make another universe, which will start making its own miracles. And so life proliferated across 1,000 million universes, each one stronger than the last. Branka repositions her hands, one flattened in the air a few inches above the other. Then she ladders them, one above the other, to suggest many layers. A millefeuille of worlds, she means to suggest, each building on the other, forming coral columns that rise and split and twist apart and split again. An endlessly growing tree sprung from a single tiny seed, whose branches are each wildly different that life on one would be unrecognizable to life on another, with one important exception. Cities traverse the layers. So what I take from this is that every time someone makes a decision, another world kind of is born, because with each action, there's an equal opposite reaction, right? So one person goes this way, in the other world, the other person goes this way, but they still live in the same city. So that's what I understand from it, is that cities traverse the layers, and that this city, Relia, was from a different universe that was kind of impacted by the first universes. So every time a city awakens, I think it becomes, that's the reality where it is awake. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining this, but that's what I took from it, and it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Like a multiverse, or?
It's like this. So picture a map and all the big cities. And then you have layer 1 on the map, and that's our world. And then instead of, like, in our world after this, Tilly is going to go hang out with her parents. But in another world, she goes home and hangs out with her boyfriend. So that splits it off into another layer. And so everybody's like crossing. And if you like turned all the layers on, there'd be like a million of us just running around our world. But as you turn the layers off, then it's just us, and that's all we can see. I think that's why you see Manny and them have those visions where they're like seeing, he saw the subway station, it was all dilapidated. That was another kind of like layer of the universe where something else happened, like the tentacle lady won or whatever, and New York died.
But where is she from? Which layer?
I don't think she's from Earth. I think she's from like
Another
a different
planet of layers.
I think so.
So are all of the boroughs in the same layer or a different layer?
The same.
They're all the same.
Because they're all the same.
Part of New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're all together. Now, maybe the next book is about alternate versions of them. I don't know. That's probably not, but...
Like, I get
weird
some
and
of
cool.
it. Yeah, I get some
I get
of
excited
it.
thinking about it.
I wish that we had learned more about that stuff from the beginning, because
Yeah, it did take a while to get there.
yes, and like, to me, okay, so I'm gonna bring back The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. A lot of stuff happens in there, and we learn a lot of things, but we learn it with the character, versus I
Right.
felt like the bulk of these characters, they were like, I don't know why I know this, but I just know it. So here we go. And I was like, okay, but why? So when Branka tried to explain stuff, I was like, thank God. But then I was like, I'm too far in now. I don't understand, you know? But I was so glad for her chunk there, because I could like try to piece some of it together. But even then, they're like, how do you know this? And she was like, I don't know. It just is in my brain. And I was like, well, God damn it, you know? Like... And Sao Paulo was trying to, like, mentor New York City, that avatar. But he didn't give us any info either, really. So I wanted more info so I could, like, get into the world more and then get into the layers of the layers, you know? Like,
Trident layers, so many.
I was thinking ogres.
Oh, onions.
Or a parfait.
yes. I would rather think of the millefeuille
that's a
because
perfect
that's
movie.
tasty.
Yeah, millefeuille is delicious.
I've never had it, but I've looked at it and lusted after it. Not lusted, I shouldn't say that. But it looks so delicious. It looks so good.
You should say, I lust
I
after
was going to
them.
say you did.
Yeah.
That was sound creepy. But yeah, it looks really tasty. Oh my god. But yeah, I just felt like
Amazing.
everyone already was so overpowered and they didn't even know it. So then they were like, whoa, I can do this. Whoa, I can do that. Why? I don't know. And they just kept going.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think I also struggle with when magic systems don't have hard rules. And this one was just kind of like whatever they needed to do, they had the power to do. The scale was varying. And I kind of struggle with that. I kind of like hard magic systems, like this is the rules. They have limits or there's repercussions. And this kind of was like when they needed to do something, they could just do it. And I was like, and sometimes, you know, that's fine for some people or more soft magic systems, but I'm very much like, no, rules. And so when
also-
whatever burrow would just be able to do something, I'd be like,
But why? Yeah.
Yeah. Harder magic systems in terms of rules allow for more dynamic and what's the word I'm looking for? Not disagreement, problems with the characters because they can't reach the goal that they're getting to.
Conflicts,
But
more.
because this was really just, oh, well, we have to go here. Okay, well, we're just gonna do it. It's fine. And I was like,
Yeah. Because when they said they're going
wish.
to devour them, I was like, oh shit. No one knew
Yeah, I was
they
like,
were
that's
gonna
a big plot
die.
twist.
Yeah. But then they didn't
But
die
then no.
because Jersey came up.
JK.
Jersey was like, hey. Oh, what am I thinking of In the Heights now? Vanessa. You know?
yeah.
I would rather watch that again right now. Well, no, I'm enjoying this recording.
Yes, good. I realized partway through this recording that I was picturing Leslie Jones as Brooklyn this whole time.
Really?
And that makes a lot of sense to me.
I would love Leslie Jones, but I didn't think of that. I love her, but I did not like Brooklyn.
Isn't it weird though, like the people that your mind understands to be characters sometimes?
Yes.
Like sometimes I picture someone, I'm like, who is that? But because your brain can't make up a face, did you know that? Your brain can't make up a face. It can only know faces that you've seen before. So that's very creepy to think about when you're dreaming and you see a stranger. Who are they? You've seen them, don't know. But sometimes
don't like
I'm
that.
imagining a character and I'm like, who is that? And it's like, oh, this kid I went to middle school with for 3 days and, you know, I saw him once.
Left an impression on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Weird.
I pictured Tilda Swinton, is that her name? As the woman in white, because
Okay, yeah, that fits. That fits.
The White
was-
Witch from
yeah.
Narnia. That
But-
checks out.
also my family doctor growing up was named Dr. White, and he was great. So I just want to say.
Does anyone have any quotes they wanted to read or like talk about parts that they didn't hate or
Okay, can I read one sentence? Are you guys ready for this?
Yes, I think I
Ready.
know what you're going to say, and I'm ready.
I'm not even gonna preface. I go over the barrier and through the grass into fucking hell. I go 1 lane silver car, 2 lanes horns, 3 lanes semi. What's a fucking semi doing on the FDR? It's too tall, you stupid upstate hick. Screaming 4 lanes green taxi, screaming smart car, ha ha ha. Cute 5 lanes moving truck, 6 lanes and a blue Lexus actually brushes up against my clothes and it blares past screaming. Screaming metal and tires as reality stretches and nothing stops for the mega cop. It does not belong here, and the FDR is an artery vital with the movement of nutrients and strength and attitude and adrenaline. The cars are white blood cells, and the thing is an irritant, an infection, an invader to whom the city gives no consideration and no quarter, screaming as the mega cop is torn to pieces by the semi and the taxi and the Lexus and even that adorable smart car, which actually swerves a little to run over an extra wiggly piece. There you go.
I love it. You didn't love it?
That embodies
Yeah.
the entire
I
book.
got to that sentence and page 14 and I was like, I'm emotionally done. I'm emotionally over this book.
See, that is not what I thought you were going to read. I thought you were going to read, "You shall not pass." I've always wanted to say that. I was so angered. That's my last point I want to make. Why did you bring in all these random quotes from other things? And then she was like, ah! Like her laugh on the audiobook was so crazy. But I'm just like,
so crazy.
I did not appreciate the J.R.R. Tolkien Easter egg there. I didn't. Because what does she know about J.R.R. Tolkien? She's a tentacle lady thing. Like, I don't understand.
She's well read.
Well, she's got a lot of time to read, I guess, and catch up on things. But I'm just like, because to me,
the interdimensional library is stocked.
Which I will read in that library. I think that'd be interesting. But
every book has tentacles.
But also scary because who knows. But
I'm just thinking, if Lord of the Rings isn't available on Libby in this universe, I'll go on Libby in another universe and I'll get it there.
Skip the line. Yeah. But I just, if the book had been more campy all throughout, then I would have been able to laugh at that line.
Right.
But it wasn't campy for me, so I was like, how dare you, Dr. White, say that?
You didn't laugh throughout? No. I thought it was fun and campy. It definitely, like, not campy in a really, like, RuPaul's Drag Race campy. No. It was campy in, like, kind of weird, dark humor that didn't always make sense. I did laugh at the enemy a lot. Her lines were so silly.
I did not. But maybe it's because I was hearing it as well. And it sounded like cuckoo in my ear. But she did a great job. But I was like,
it did.
Okay.
And once you've made up your mind about a book too, so, like this happens to me all the time where I'm like, I decide I hate someone in real life. And I'm like, everything they do is the worst thing that anyone could possibly do in the world. Even though it's like, they're just brushing their teeth or whatever. Gosh. Yeah, it's like...
I will say I gave it way more pages than I would normally give a book because there were little tiny nuggets where I was like, oh, interesting. But it just wasn't for me. And that's too bad. But I will look at her other books at some point because...
Same.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
we finished it. So.
And...
we gave it a good college try. Like we finished
the old college try. And I think we did a good job talking about it. And kudos to the three of you for coming up with really interesting things to talk about, even though you struggled, all three of you, reading the book. So
thank you.
We shared this experience, all four of us.
I feel like we're closer because of it.
Same.
Yes.
All right. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the BYOB podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more from us, you can head over to our social media accounts to keep up to date on all things BYOB. We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the works. Thanks again to our special guest, Jess Owens. Jess, where can people hear more from you?
If you care to hear from me, on Instagram, it is Said by Jess, where it's kind of my whole life, including Nigel. And then Twitter is Said by Jess, but it has an annoying underscore first because someone stole my name. It's very annoying. And then I did start a TikTok, also Said by Jess, but it's mostly skincare. So, like, if you want to learn about, like,
I do.
Stuff, that's where you should go. And then, of course, YouTube, my channel is just Jess Owens, and also my Patreon is patreon.com/Jess Owens. I mostly talk about books, and then on Patreon, additional exclusive content. So that's where I am around the interwebs.
Great.
Come find me.
Thank you. Stay tuned after this to hear the first line of our next read, the classic 80s Southern novel Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. See you next time, and until then, keep on drinking in great stories. Cheers!
Next time on BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. The Whistle Stop Cafe opened last week, right next door to me at the post office. The owners, Iggy Threadgood and Ruth Jemisin, said business has been good ever since.